So I've been talking about being a target in the workplace to the point I don't even want to deal with the stress of working a full-time permanent job again. The reason I'm being targeted is stems from my conviction and the nature of it, which people will not let go. And I will fill you in on my conviction another time. Well, the job I'm going to speak about now is a job I worked in Westchester, PA. I worked at I worked at this place for about 7 months, and it seems they were doing things to get me to quit. And part of the reason I believe is I was being targeted at this place had to do a little to do with my lawsuit against IKEA. Now, I'm not going to drag this out, everything that went on at this place, but I want to talk about some of the things that were directed at me. So, the site supervisor for this agency, one, submitted my time late to delay my pay. He sends me the email you see here, and it says if I had any issues to call him, and well, I didn't get my pay. I call him, no answer. Call him again, no answer. Left him a message, no response. And eventually I did get my pay the following week. And I always printed out my pay stub. So but the dates were off. And so I thought one of my pay stubs, something was missing. So I called to payroll and was told that my time was submitted late. Now I want you to listen to her. Online to print out my pay stub, and it's saying pay in date 9/19. Yeah, why does it say 9/19? You had a late payroll close. Your hours were submitted on the 19th. So that paycheck for $577.33 was confirmed on Thursday the 19th. Now, she didn't say there was a malfunction with the system that week. She said my time was submitted late. So I believe he submitted it late with the hope that I would get riled up and quit. And the other things that were going on, management was moving me back and forth between two different departments. It's like they were trying to find something for me to do, almost to say, like, we don't need you. And what was strange was they brought in some new workers months after I came to help with, a heavy workload. So I felt like, why are you scrambling to find work for me when you have people who started after I did? They had me doing things like, checking these small boxes for dents. And, this didn't take long, so, it was done like the same day. And then after that, um, they had me making boxes and placing labels on them. And one of the workers told me um, that I could take my time in this one station that I was working doing kidding. Because he was like, he said, oh, they're 3 weeks ahead. Yet, the day after I had called out, and the following day when I came in, he had worked that same station. So, if they were so much 3 weeks ahead, why did you need to work? Why did they have you work in that station? And then they had me, I was working in the receiving department, and it seems someone tampered with the label maker. So, this is what it looked like. So, when I would scan, it would not take. So, I would have to type it in versus a quick scan. And this receiving department, it was required to reach a number goal. And not being able to scan would slow the progress. And I believe that was the intent. So if you look at the two labels, you'll see the one on top is like going off the label. The one on the bottom is the correct one. That was, you know, that was easier to scan, where the top one I couldn't. Then they had a bogus meeting going over policies with just myself and one other person who had been there, who had been employed there for years. They also had an employee who I believe was there just to keep a watch of me. And, they were assigning me frivolous assignments. And then they had me working in a station they call Harvest, cleaning adapter cords. And I worked in Harvest for about a week before I started to have an issue with my hand. It was an issue I had some years ago, but working in Harvest caused the issue to flare up. So when I spoke with the site supervisor for the agency I worked for, I explained to him that it seemed as though they were trying to get me to quit. So according to him, this company does not like to play games. And that if they wanted to get rid of me, they would just, end my assignment. And then he goes on to say they will sometimes ask him to move his stronger people to another area, who understands the job more. Now I'm going to let you hear what he had to say.
This doesn't make sense to me. Maybe because you're one of the stronger people there. Sometimes they'll reassign people that can pick up the work in a different department or something like that, as opposed to someone who's new, who's still cutting their teeth and doesn't really understand how things work. I know they'll ask me to move people to different departments based on their seniority and their ability to grasp what the job is. So that could be it. So I'm not there, so I can't really speak exactly to it. But I can guarantee you that it's not a case of them trying to get rid of you or make you quit.
Okay, now either he knew what was going on or he was pretending he didn't have a clue. Because at the time he said this, I didn't tell him the type of work they had me doing. It wasn't work that required skill, so they could have pulled anyone to do what they had me working on. And it was clear they were trying to get me to quit versus firing. When I injured my hand, it was in September. So I knew around that time many places were hiring for seasonal positions for the holiday. So I had applied with this agency. So when I obtained the seasonal position, that's when I left. So they got what they wanted. Their mission was accomplished. And I know I was a target at this place of appointment. And a couple other things, like, I'm gonna call him the high five guy and my spy. But this is just one of those jobs where I was targeted. And I have some other jobs that I've worked where I feel as I was being targeted. So, but that's all for this one. So, that's all for now.